Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals podcast. My name is Dawn, and right next to me, we have the beautiful Alison, hailing literally like all the way 5 miles from where I'm at right now. But here we are
Mhm.
virtually. I love it. And the reason why, a lot of it is because Allison has a little boy that, by the way, we were just talking, like, I see his picture on social media. I just want to reach through the screen and squeeze him. How old is your son right now?
He just turned 2 last month.
Oh, he's precious, precious. So you're a mother, so you're
Thank
a
you.
working mother yet on top of it. So thank you for spending time this afternoon. I know your time
Mhm.
is extremely valuable with work, with taking care of your sweet little baby, and also taking care of your husband too. Oh, let's throw that one in.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, there we go. Allison has agreed to come on and talk to us today about a really important subject I think gets glossed over until it's too late or until you're in the stages of it. And the subject I want to speak about today is palliative care, or we can call it comfort care, and what that means to a family in the final times and what that is for a family in general surrounding loved ones. So specifically palliative care, from what I understand it, it's it's a specialized medical care that kind of focuses on the relieving symptoms, pain, anxiety, and stress for the patient, but also the family too. And the basic goal of palliative care is to improve the quality of life for, again, the patient and the family, and to help kind of walk through the next part of that path, whatever that may look like for the patient and the family alongside, and involve the family, teach them about it. What is the best course of action for deemed by the doctors specifically to the prognosis that has been set out, but what's the best course of action? And like I said, I think that we don't speak about palliative care and this comfort care until we're in the throes of it. And then you're kind of like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was something I needed to be aware of. And I'm so glad that you agreed to come on and talk about this today, Allison, because your father passed away about 2 years ago, and you guys were in the thick of that whole palliative care, and you learned a lot of things the hard way. So thank you for coming on and
You're
having a
welcome.
conversation about it today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about a little bit about your dad. First of all, let's kind of go down that road. I know you guys had, from knowing you, I know you guys had such a like tight bond, and
Yeah.
so dear. Obviously, there's nothing like, and my husband will say the same thing. We have two daughters. There's nothing like that dad and daughter
Nope,
bond. Tell me a
there's
little bit
not.
about your dad.
Yeah, he was my best friend. We he was an adventurer. He loved the outdoors. He taught outward bound courses when he was young. He was a lifelong pastor, so went to seminary when he met my mom, and then he
Okay.
was at a church in Effingham, Illinois for 25 years. And then
Wow.
retired, yeah, so he was at a church for a long time, so that was really my childhood growing up, but he was president of Salvation Army. He used to say he was the head dingling because he would he would coordinate all of the Salvation Army bell ringing around town,
No.
yeah, during Christmas time, and so
Okay.
we would have to go pick up all the money, and, he helped people find places to stay when they didn't have a place to stay. He helped get people food vouchers. He brought people to our house if they were homeless and needed a meal. So I definitely had a different upbringing, I would say, because I was so exposed to all of those aspects of just general, caring for your community and being a really active member in your community for my whole
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, volunteering and community. Like, it sounds like your dad was one of those people that really worked to bring people together and to offer as much support as possible. So,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about his last the last months and where it really started to get with you, because he passed away. We were talking before I hit the record, kind of a slippery kind of combination of a couple different things is what you were telling me. So
Yeah.
share with us a little bit about what was going on with him in those last months, or the last year when he was
Definitely.
diagnosed.
Sure. So I'll kind of back up a little bit because he was diagnosed with Parkinson's when he was in his 50s. And so that was when he was still working. It was actually diagnosed really early for him, which is a lot of people don't have that benefit, right? But one of our family friends actually noticed that he was shuffling his feet more than normal. And
Okay.
so they got in touch with a neurologist and went to a really fantastic doctor at Barnes in St. Louis and helped us kind of on the path to medicine management. And people with Parkinson's know that the main medicine is carbidopa-levodopa, which sounds funny, but that's the real name.
Yeah.
And you kind of just manage that medicine, and you manage the quantity, you manage when you take it, and that's it. Like, that's the main thing. If you don't qualify for deep brain stimulation, and then the other medicine is exercise. Exercise is huge for Parkinson's patients.
Yeah.
So that was in his mid 50s, and he retired a little bit early because the Parkinson's was getting a little bit worse, but he never had the shaking Parkinson's. He never shook until the very end, which is a lot of the people with Parkinson's, you think they're going to shake all the time, but that just wasn't his flavor of Parkinson's. So
Gotcha.
fast forward to, they moved to South Carolina, back to his hometown after he retired, and they were there for, I think, like 4 or 5 years. And
Mhm.
then one Christmas, we had a conversation as a family about kind of what the next steps were, because we knew Dad was getting a little bit worse. We knew it was a lot on Mom to be his caregiver. And so
Mhm.
we made the decision as a family to move them to Nashville so we could get, the Vanderbilt doctors, get a lot of therapies, and we could
Yeah.
help out with his care. So we
Yes.
had that decision in Christmas of 2022. Early March of 2023, terrible fall. He was getting up from his chair, going to the bathroom, and he tripped and he hit his right here on his head, which hits the frontal lobe.
Right.
So that was kind of the beginning of everything that ended up happening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that happened. And I think my mom kind of knew then that that was kind of the beginning of like the downhill. But I drove all night, got there. He was in the South Carolina hospital for a couple days. And
Mhm.
then we decided to get him to Vanderbilt. We were just going to move up early, because at this point they hadn't sold their house or like done anything.
So they
And
were already planning, they had planned the move to be
yeah,
closer to you already, but
hmm
it was just like, would this just the fall accelerated bringing them closer to you?
yeah, it forced it to go quicker. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we got him there, got him into Vanderbilt, and then we had to admit him because he'd already fallen, right? It had already happened, was in the emergency room at Vanderbilt downtown, and it was in the afternoon. God bless my husband, because he said that was one of the absolute scariest 12 hours of his life, because it is a rough place. It is
Yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
all kinds come in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so they saw him there, kind of did the assessment on his, brain, saw neurology, did the whole workup. We were there for 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks in the hospital proper.
Okay.
This is a very detailed timeline, but it does make sense.
Yeah, no,
And
you're
then
great. That's great.
we go to Stallworth Rehab, which is like on Vanderbilt campus, but
Mhm.
it's like an after hospital rehab. So you
Mhm.
have more therapies than you do when you're in the actual hospital. And this
Right.
is when you get the social worker assigned, and you start learning about physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, what they all are, what each person does, how it impacts, who you're caring for. So my dad, and you can only do that for 21 days with Medicare. So after that happened, we get moved to an acute care facility, which is like a long-term rehab,
Mhm.
essentially, because he isn't quite ready to go home yet. So we were there for not that long, I think like a month or two, and that is more intensive. So you have more physical therapy, more occupational therapy, more speech therapy. You also have another social worker. And I think one of the things that really I learned, sorry, I gotta get my dog out of here. One of the things that I learned is that you use the social workers. The social workers are absolutely phenomenal. In my head, I
Yeah.
had only thought of social workers as foster care, like you look for children that are being hurt. And so
Yeah.
I didn't think they're there to help you navigate the system.
Yeah, I think it's
And
interesting listening to you, like, there's so many pieces, and he was shuffled from one place to another
yeah.
place to another place. I'm the same way. When I think of social
hmm
worker, I think of I like, that box for me is something different than what you were
Yeah.
explaining it. And I'm glad that you said that, like, use the social workers that are at your access, at your disposal, because
Yeah.
that's what they're there to, like, it's something we just don't think about at that point. So,
Yeah.
I love that you realized that, and that was
They're
helpful for you then, I'm
amazing.
assuming.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're so amazing, and they really help you navigate all of the pieces. Obviously, they're looking to make sure that they're cared for, but the Medicare, and they had supplemental insurance on top of that. And then since he was a pastor, they also have like a pension with the Presbyterian Church. So it's very, very hard to navigate what's going to be paid for, what needs to be pre-approved before he can have certain surgeries. They also had a long-term care policy, which I want to talk about too. But
Yeah.
it is so difficult to navigate the pieces of what's paid for, what's covered for how long, how many hours, like what he
Yeah.
qualifies for, and they helped so much. They were
Yeah.
a lifesaver for every single step of the process.
So it's so much red tape. I mean, just
So
listening
much.
to you talk about when he went into the emergency room, okay, and then to Stallworth, and then to the
Mhm.
next rehab, and the amount of days that Medicaid only covers. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's really hard. You can't really put the same label on every situation, unfortunately.
No.
So every situation is different, and the red tape that you're going to have to struggle with and fight through to get the coverage that your loved one deserves. I know I can hear it so much because I know that you are such an advocate. Obviously, you started out, your dad was your best friend. I mean, who's not going to
Mhm.
advocate for your best friend, you
Yeah.
know? So doing that work,
Yeah.
super frustrating, super challenging. Tell
Yeah.
me, at the point where he was released from Stallworth, the initial rehab facility after Vanderbilt, and then he was moved into the next facility, when did the social workers and the doctors start talking to you about this might be a situation we need to look at a little bit more differently than what we may be
Yeah.
looking at it in?
Yeah. This part was so I guess I didn't include either. I was with him most of the nights he was in Stallworth. I would just stay there and have a cot. And then I was also, I mean, I was working from there. Luckily, thank God I work remote. And so I was able to work there and take meetings because he was really out of it at this point. Like his brain was, the fall escalated his dementia by, 15 years, they estimate. So
Wow.
he couldn't remember what the doctors were telling him. So one of us needed to be there. And I think
Yeah.
my mom was so, I don't know, traumatized, and like we switched off where we could, but me, my husband, and my mom kind of took shifts, because if you weren't there when the doctors came in during their rounds, you didn't know, like you didn't know what was going on. So that's another level of challenge that's just hard logistically, because I don't know if I had a job where I was in the office, or my husband did, like it would have been very hard for us to navigate. I don't know what
Right.
we would have done. It would have been really hard.
Right.
So sorry, what was your question? I totally forgot.
I'm interested to know when the conversation switched for the doctors, the social workers, the
Oh,
people that
yeah,
were
yeah,
caring for your dad, about what they believed was actually happening for him at this
yeah.
point, and if they felt like his prognosis was getting to a point where he was going to be able to be going home and your mom was going
Mhm.
to be able to take care of him again.
Yeah. So we had one doctor, one neurologist specifically in Stallworth, and Vanderbilt's a teaching hospital. So it's one main neurologist, but then you have a kind of an army of doctors that come with you because they're training,
Right.
which my dad was a teacher, so he would have loved that. But the doctor came in and he's like, we're looking at brain scans based on his initial assessment. We think that his dementia has progressed, 15 plus years potentially. I would probably say you have about a year, and the quality of his dementia is slowly going to decline. And I heard that, and we're still pretty early in the process, and I'm like, hell no, like,
Yeah,
not,
right. Like, it ain't
absolutely
happening.
not. Like, I'm
Uh-uh.
going to do every possible thing I can. We'll get another doctor's opinion. Like, we're going to get all of the therapies. He'll come to our house. Like, it is, no. I was just purely refusing that
Yeah.
when he
Yeah,
told me that, because
understandable. Yeah.
I was in that phase of grief too. Like, I wasn't ready to say goodbye. Like, I needed more
Mhm.
time, but I was not willing to accept that answer. But
Yeah.
fast forward, that is pretty much exactly what happened, unfortunately. Is it
Mhm.
took about almost exactly a year to the date. I think he fell on March 7th, and then a year later it was March 19th that he passed,
Wow.
which is wild.
Wow. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about what happened between that conversation where the doctor shared, "Hey, this is what
Hmm.
we're thinking prognosis-wise," and the day that he passed. What did that window look like for him and for
Yeah.
you guys, specifically maybe as a family, and how you handled that? Was he at your home at any point? Was he in a rehab facility? Did he have to go back and forth between the 2?
Hmm.
What was that level of
Yeah.
care for him?
So we eventually, once he was dismissed from or discharged from the rehab facility, we moved him to our house. So we
Mhm.
repurposed the office I'm in actually right now to be a room that was, suitable for him. It has a walk-in shower. We moved his chair in here and moved my mom upstairs, and we had 24/7 in-home care.
Right.
So that was that is hard. That one, it's extremely, extremely expensive. And
Right.
two, you have somebody in your home, right? You have somebody in your home. And God bless those people that do that profession, because I mean, it can be hard, and you don't know what environment you're going into. You're working long hours, you're not doing the most pleasant job. Like, he would be
Yeah.
confused, and he could get frustrated or, angry. And then I could come in, or me and my mom could come in and kind of help things. But he would get up in the middle of the night and kind of be confused, and the person would be here in the night, and they'd have to like help him back into his bed, right?
Yeah.
So that we did that for about 3 months, and we had in-home health coming as well. And you also have a social worker for in-home health. So there's social workers at every part of the process. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's paid for by Medicare or if it's paid for by the actual providers. I'm not sure, but just if you get offered a social worker, just use it every single time. They're amazing. And
Yeah.
in-home health was also great because they actually came to your house and they go through, the speech therapy. And speech therapy is really huge for Parkinson's as well, which I learned.
Okay.
So then he actually got COVID. So he got COVID 3 months into him living here, and that was when he went back to Vanderbilt, Wilson County, actually.
Mhm.
And that was when it was still locked down, because it was, what was it now, 2022. So it
Yeah.
was still locked down, so only one person can go in. So it was just my mom, and she could go in for 2 hours a day. I think it was limited. It was pretty hardcore still then.
Wow,
And
Allison, holy cow. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that happened, and he was there for not that long, I think 2 to 3 weeks. But then we went back to the long-term rehab facility,
Okay.
and he was at this one for a while because
Mhm.
they needed to. I forget the metrics, like what they wanted him to be able to do himself before he was discharged, but it was a while. And
Mhm.
he kind of never got back to where he was when he was at my house, and even that level was lower than obviously what he was prior to the fall. But I
Yeah.
think he was doing that gradual decline, and it was hard to see when you were in it. It now, hindsight's 2020, but when you're actually going through it day to day, it's very hard to make the right decision and to know what's going on.
Right. Yeah, you're really invested in it every day. It is hard to kind of separate
So
yourself
hard.
from that. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
hard. And
Um,
so he was there rehab, and then whenever I think he was there for like 6 months. He was there for a long time. And at
yeah.
that point, we looked at kind of his status and what, where he was at, and decided it was better for him to go to a memory care facility in town in Mount Juliet. And
Okay.
that worked out to be a blessing, because then you have somebody there 24/7. You have nurses to provide. There's a nurse there all the time if something happens.
Yeah.
Um, and he was right at the road, so we were there every single day.
Yeah. So you could see him, but you know that he's getting the care that he needs to get for the condition of where he's
Mhm.
at that point.
Yep.
Where was that in conjunction with his passing date? How
So I
long
think,
before that
oh
was
boy,
it?
I should have wrote these timelines out before. I believe he went there in August, and then he passed in the following March. And I also want to say we started hospice care, because that was a misconception I had too. Hospice doesn't have to start right when they're about to die. Like, it doesn't, that's not necessarily when it has to be to start. And
Yeah.
once you are approved for hospice care on Medicare, um, you get the works. I mean, they have a nurse visit 2 to 3 times a week. You have an
Okay.
on-call number that you can call if you're nervous about anything. Like, I remember I saw a spot on his skin one time that I was like, this looks weird. And I called the nurse, and they were there that same day. So
Yeah.
having a good hospice care team that you trust, and that you have the contacts for, and that are responsive, and you feel comfortable with them, is a game changer, because he was on hospice for about 7 months. So
Yeah, and I
we
think it's really
know them very
important to
well.
point out, like what you said, that hospice
Mhm.
is not, and I think that's a preconceived notion that a lot of us have, that hospice is an end of life procedure. Like that's the group that you call in, and it is, but it also is this. It's
Yeah.
this and this.
Yeah.
And
It can
it
be much longer.
yeah, and the things that they offer you, like you were saying, like my mother-in-law had that same situation, and I'm telling you, those hospice workers are angels, angels,
Angels.
angels, angels, totally. Yeah, it takes a very special individual to do that work.
Yeah, it really does. There was a
Yeah,
pastor that it was always an option. It's like, you have social worker, nurse, they're whatever. They give you options, and you just check what you want. And one was a pastor. And we're like, sure, he's a pastor. Dad was a pastor. And this
yeah.
guy he was amazing. He was just like, he was a grandpa. And my dad would, every time he would go, it turned on. Like, it was like he was going back in time and talking to one of his pastor buddies. And sometimes
Oh,
my dad, in the end, like when the dementia was pretty advanced, he would just break out in prayer. Like, they would be eating lunch. And then he
yeah.
would say, hey, everybody, I think it's time we have a prayer. And then he started praying.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it was wild, but the pastor was also very comforting for us too, because obviously, like, my dad was my pastor my whole life,
Yeah.
and so he was so understanding and calming and just wonderful. I can't say enough good things.
Yeah, very dear, and obviously
Mhm.
that's as a family watching your dad go through the life that he was now living, like, you wanna see him experiencing things that still touch him, you know?
Yeah,
Because he's still with you, and you want
and that
him to feel
resonate.
that love and that connection, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, let's talk a little bit more about what conversations stand out to you with your family when you got to the point where it's like,
yeah.
okay, obviously hospice came in earlier than the very end, but
Mhm,
what were some things that you faced as a family unit? Your mom, I know your sister, yourself, and your husband is in the mix
mhm,
as well. What how how did that all unfold for you? Who started those conversations? When did you realize you had to have those conversations? And
mhm.
a little bit about what that snapshot of time looked like for you guys.
Sure. So when he was originally diagnosed, so my sister's a lawyer. I think we talked about that before, but my sister's a lawyer. I'm by trade an accountant. I'm trained, and so we those conversations about trust and wills and power of attorney and DNRs. That's a very important discussion to have as a DNR if your family
Yeah.
wants that excessive measures to be taken to keep you alive. That's a very special one, important one. Those were had really right after he got diagnosed because we didn't know how quickly it was going to progress. We didn't know to what level my mom would be able to care for him and when it would be kind of past her because we you want we want my mom to care for him, but to the extent where it doesn't impact her health as well. Like obviously being a caregiver is draining. It is one of the hardest jobs on the planet, but you also have to they're both our parents, right? Like they're so we need to take care of both of them in the best way possible. And so
Yeah.
that was we were very intentional about that.
Right. Caretaker, I don't think we think about that. The caretaker is such an integral part. I mean, think about all the different pieces you've already said, right? The hospice workers,
Mhm.
the social workers, the doctors, the physical therapists, the speech therapist, the nurses, all of the different pieces and roles that go
Yeah.
into that. But then if you think about the fundamental caretaker, which is your mom. Like they're a couple. They've been married for so many years, like till death do us part, you know?
Yep.
Like you're in sickness and in health. That's what we vow for when we get married.
Mhm.
And that caretaker situation is extremely taxing. Whether it's a
Yeah.
spouse, whether it's a significant other, whether it's a daughter, whether it's a son, all of the things. I think I'm glad you said that because you have to take care of the caretaker just as much as the
You have
person that's
to.
going through the illness. Yeah.
Otherwise, they're gonna make themselves sick too, and you don't want that. Like, they need to take care of you need to make sure they're taking care of themselves. I mean, they were married almost 45 years, so, like,
Oh,
she's also grieving as well, and she's grieving before we even know, right? Like, it's happening throughout the
yeah.
Parkinson's diagnosis and throughout all of it. So, I think it's important for kids, to just watch out for their parents and make sure that they're not, you know, going too far, doing too much.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that's great. And I mean, to speak to that, how do you when you see your mom doing too much, like, how do you like, I know she's gonna be like, "Hey, this is
Yeah.
my job. This is that I'm here to do. This is what I vowed to do." Like, how do you
Yeah.
back her up with that?
Oh,
Like,
she's a force. She's a force. I don't there's not much I can really back her off of other than just kind of saying like, "Hey, like we want you to be healthy and you have grandkids and hopefully more grandkids down the road and like
yeah.
we want you to find your joy and your happiness and obviously we're all here to care for dad, but at the end like the dementia had progressed so far that it wasn't guaranteed that he knew who we were every time we were walking in. So that's
Mhm.
another level of kind of trauma. So the grief, like I started seeing a therapist really right after this started because I knew like this is beyond my level of what I can
Mhm.
handle emotionally because I am so close and that was really beneficial for me. But she helped me understand that the grief process, we started it so early. We started it the second, he got diagnosed with Parkinson's and then every major step that happened after that. And then especially whenever he was in the hospital and we're getting the not great news from the doctors about prognosis and, me being stubborn and not willing to accept it. But ultimately the
Yeah.
extras were right. So
It's just another layer. It's the grief is peeling layers away of an onion, and
oh
as
yeah.
you're going through the process, and even with your dad's passing a couple of years ago, I'd wager to bet you're still peeling layers of the onion. you know?
Absolutely. And I was
It's
20 weeks pregnant when he passed. So I think that blessing and a curse, honestly, because I think maybe if I hadn't have been pregnant, like, and he had passed, I might have gone into like a pretty deep depression. Like it's definitely possible, but
yeah.
I couldn't, right? I was growing a child and my son, and like that was the last thing he would ever want me to do. And
Mm,
so it definitely gave me a reason to put one foot in front of the other and just keep going. And I think it's probably prolonged my grief after he's passed because I'm so busy and just trying to, keep my head on straight. But
yeah. Well, you're
it's
surviving right
interesting.
now, and I think that's interesting, like, to say, because I love that you talked about having it like, going to therapy for yourself, knowing that
Yeah.
you are so interconnected with your dad and that this is a really important thing for you to be able to take care of yourself so that you can then show up for your dad, show up for your mom, show up for the whole process as a whole. But I think it's interesting when we think about, like you talked about, I feel like I'm just prolonging the grief process because I'm so busy, but
Mhm.
it's life. And
Yeah.
you can't push the stop button on your life. I mean, you can push pause or slow motion maybe. You can turn the knob to slow, like on your phone, turn it to slow-mo,
Yeah.
but it doesn't stop running. The script doesn't stop running.
Right.
So, yeah, it's when you get those opportunities to heal, there's small little pockets of healing that has to happen, and so you really have
Mhm.
to be super, super, aware of what that looks like. I know. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that
Journey.
because I think that yeah, the personal therapy
Mhm.
for the caretakers is a big deal, and the grief process, a huge deal. And you've been like he was
Yeah.
diagnosed when he was 50 with Parkinson's. It's
Yeah.
been ongoing for a while, yeah. Did your dad ever talk about final wishes with you? Anything that when he was in a place where you knew that his brain function was still in a place where, you know what, this is what I would like to see happen for me. This is what I would like to have
Yeah.
happen.
I think from
Important to
like a legal standpoint and then like the DNR standpoint, and the DNR stands for do not resuscitate. So from
me.
those, like we knew early on, but is regarding the fall, like I remember him saying pretty early on, and I was like, do you want to fight through this? Like this is going to be a fight, and he's like, of course I do. There's no other shot. So like he definitely thought until his body just kind of didn't keep going with him, right? Like
Yeah.
he did not think it was the end. Like whenever he was still his brain was with him enough to know, which is tragic and really sad. But also, he was in so much pain and dementia. That same neurologist that told me in the beginning, he explained it to us like as it progresses, the traumas from somebody's past that you kind of go backwards in time, right? So, say he died when he was 69, so you have 69 years of life, and you'll know it's progressing whenever he starts talking about traumas from earlier on in his life. So that was extremely
Wow.
interesting. Yeah, because he lost his sister when he was like 15, very young. And so we were like, okay, if he starts talking about, Aunt Harriet, then it's probably close. Like we know it's probably happening soon. But
Yeah.
he would see his mom and his dad, and he would talk to them like they were in the room. And that was honestly comforting for me because I'm like, if he's seeing them, they're providing comfort, and I want him to be comfortable. I want him to not feel pain. I want him to, you know, just be at peace, not stressed and scared and, you know.
Yes. Yeah, at peace. I think you said it beautifully right there. You want that comfort, and it's not
Mhm.
I mean, from a neurological standpoint, I didn't know that about dementia. That's a very interesting piece
Yeah.
that you see the progression. It goes back in their brain into the different traumas that they've experienced. That's invaluable information. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to kind of know how it's gauging and how they're moving along. And he also you learn for I think any neurological diseases, but dementia and Alzheimer's specifically, you don't go to them and say, "Hey, no, I'm your daughter. My name's Alison." If they think you just go with it because if you pull them out of whatever world that they're living in at that point, it's going to be much more upsetting for them, and that in turn is going to be upsetting for you. So you
Right.
definitely get good at saying, "Okay, yeah, who are we talking to today? Are we talking to Steven? Are we talking to Alexis or whoever we're talking to?" Maybe he thought I was my sister, and that happened quite a bit. So if we're talking to Anna, then great. We're talking to Anna today. Like that's cool.
Mhm.
How's Wake Forest doing today? Because he went to Wake Forest as well, so he was a huge, huge sports fan.
Yeah.
But you kind of flex that muscle and you grow that ability to just enter the world that they're in because it's more peaceful for them. And
Mhm.
you don't want, their blood pressure spiking and you don't want any of that. So you just kind of go
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. tell me a little bit about the different roles in this in the last 6 months of his life, the different people that filled those roles. I know you talked briefly about the hospice nurses and the social workers, and specifically you guys as caretakers. But what really stands out in those last months to you? And I mean, that's just a
Mm,
question just kind of popped in my brain because I think there's so much value from a personal perspective of someone that's walked through this palliative care, this comfort care, this end of life path that you were walking, about what was helpful and most impactful for you during that period of time that another person may have gifted you.
yeah. I think it's spending the time, like, even though it's hard to be there, because you need to be there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that we did go every single day, and then my husband would go with me every single day, and, like, and checking on his care and knowing that, he's taken care of well, and he has Mountain Dews in his, little mini fridge that we got for him because that was his favorite. And the facility he was at actually did a happy hour with live music on Fridays at 4 o'clock, and we would go almost every single Friday, and
Oh,
they would have all this music going, and everybody just absolutely loved it. All the residents just had a blast, and my dad loved it too. He'd be clapping and just, kind of moving a little bit, and he had so much fun. And
yeah.
so you get these little pockets of, like, this is such a good memory, even though in overall you're in a very hard time. Like, pockets like that are such
Mhm.
amazing memories that we have. And there was one time where my dad did not drink. He did not drink at all. He's Southern, his dad was a Southern Baptist. Like, his mom, my grandma was very anti-alcohol. So
Yeah.
he just didn't really drink his whole life. And so we're sitting there, and I have a glass of wine and my husband has a beer. My dad looks at my husband. He's like, "Hey, get me one of those." Go get
Are
me
you
one of those.
serious?
Yeah, and so we're like, okay. So we get him a beer, we grab it to him, and he takes a drink. He goes, "That's just terrible." That's
Oh
terrible.
my gosh.
I think he was just kind of partying and grooving, and I don't
Yeah.
know. But little things like that, there were definitely positive memories, even
Mhm.
being, and the other residents' families that were there all the time too, we got close with them as well. So you meet
Right.
people that are also going through similar phases of life, and it's I don't know, every community everywhere is beneficial. I think any
Yeah.
place you find community, people that are going through life experiences and that it's always positive to be close to those people and to talk to those people.
Yeah, it's relatability. And in relatability, we find connection, and in connection, we find comfort. And
Hmm.
when we're in the middle of something that's heavy, or when we're in the middle of something that's like you just experienced, like
Yeah.
that pocket of that memory that you were just talking about, like that lift up, that happiness. It's stuff that we share with each other and that we use to really we rely on each other. It's what I always say it, we're hardwired for connection. That's what we're here
Yep.
to do. We're here to connect. Tell me a little bit about the things that you learned along the way. Obviously, there's no roadmap for it. No one knows the timing
No.
of it. The doctor's
Yeah.
best guesstimate is this. So lining up different pieces of palliative care and comfort care, not really knowing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all, none of us know. None of us know.
Yeah. None of us
So
know. And you don't know when it's going to happen. Like, you don't, definitely wills, trusts, power of attorney. That's like
wills,
step one.
trusts, powers of attorney, and
However, like,
DNR.
yeah,
Yeah.
DNR. Decide if you want a DNR.
Mhm.
Get all of that figured out. Step one. Step two is also long-term care insurance. They had
Mhm.
long-term care insurance. So we were pricing facilities around here. And is it okay to give, like, dollars? That's okay, right? So
Yeah.
for how much? So we're pricing around here, and the ones that we found were about $7,000 a month. That's the main cost of these facilities for memory care specifically, because memory care and, like, assisted living, they're all different levels, right? Everything has different levels. But
Yeah.
$7,000 a month, and that was cheaper than the 24/7 in-home care too. So I
Wow.
don't. Thank God that they had long-term care insurance that they got in their. I think they got in their 40s or 50s, but I know those policies are really hard to find. So also, like, supplementary care insurance, like anything that insurance that can help your family down the road, because also you don't necessarily want to sell their house. I know a lot of families are, well, we'll just sell the house and then we'll pay for their care with the house, but, like, what if you don't want to do, what if they might be able to go back to their house one day? Like, you don't know
You just don't
necessarily that
know.
it's going to
Mhm.
be, you don't know. So
Mhm.
I think that was just took a lot of the pressure off, because we knew that it was going to be mostly covered and he was going to be able to be in a really good, well-rated facility.
Yeah,
So
and you're not saddling your family necessarily
that,
with
yeah,
that burden of having to figure out when
Mm.
you maybe have had to have a power of attorney where your loved one can't make those decisions. So now you're in this predicament, you're grieving the situation, you're
Mhm.
connected with this person that is having this health issue, and you don't know the prognosis is this, but you have no idea when. So you're counting every moment together as being super special and
Yep.
valuable. And then you throw on top of there, oh yeah, financially, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this work? How are we going to
Yeah.
give him the best quality of life as a family? How does that look to
Mhm.
us? Have we
Yeah.
planned enough? Like it's just there's so much. And I'm so glad you said all those different pieces. The legal pieces of it, and thankfully your sister's a lawyer too, but
Yeah.
for anybody that's
That helps.
not a lawyer that doesn't
Mhm.
know that, those end of life things that we can all be talking about in our 30s, 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
60s, God help us wherever age we are, that it's important to have those conversations. And some of them are difficult. I know, there's like, we've talked about will stuff with our 22 and 18-year-old with like regarding what our stuff looks like. And they're
Yeah.
like, I don't know that I really want to hear this. And I'm like, we're going to make it as soft
No.
and as specific
Exactly.
as we can. And just, it's knowledge, it's power, right? And it's
Yeah.
helpful for you
And
down
it
the
is
line.
a conversation for sure, but it's so much better to be open about it because what like I don't know. I'm so appreciative for how open my parents were about it with us. We knew exactly who power of attorney was. Like we knew all of it, right? Because so
Yes.
nothing was a surprise. And I think when you don't know, and if your family is more secretive about it, then it's more awkward too. Because also I didn't talk about this yet, but my dad managed most of the finances for my parents. And so once this happened, we weren't planning on it happening. This is an area we were not prepared. But this my mom had to take over, or I took it over for a while, and then we kind of transferred over to my mom slowly. But it's a whole area skill that she hadn't had to use the 45 years that they were married, right? So
Yeah.
that's also something that it's probably good to, passwords, keep passwords in shared places, little things like that that everybody I think knows to do at this point. But it really does matter because you don't know when an accident happens or when something happens that's going to make all of that much more difficult.
Yeah, even something that incapacitates you and takes you to a place where you can't let your loved ones know, "Hey, this is X, Y, and Z," or "These are my wishes."
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are hard conversations. It's not easy stuff to talk about. It can
Mhm.
be, it can be upsetting, I know, but it's
Mhm.
valuable to have the conversations. What do you wish you would have known earlier in the process if you could kind of go back? The things that you learned along the way in
Yeah.
the whole world of understanding this final layer, understanding what palliative care, comfort care, what that picture for your dad looks like. What is there anything that stands out for you that you wish you
Oh
would have
boy.
known done differently?
I wish I'm an accountant, right? So I wish I would have an Excel spreadsheet explaining rehab, after hospital rehab, hospital, and everything like the max amount of days and like what the nurse to patient ratio is for all those places. Like what are the requirements for surgeries? That would have been fantastic. But I
Yeah.
know that doesn't exist and that changes for everybody's insurance. So I don't think
Yeah.
that would have existed. But
Yeah.
uh, that would be a main thing. And I also we made a really conscious, and this was mostly Tim, my husband, but we made a very conscious effort to take care, bring donuts, bring crumble cookies. We would bring Chick-fil-A to all of the nurses, every single place we were, because these like obviously a lot of people are called to do this work, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But they're not the Elon Musk, they're not making millions and millions of dollars. So something
Right?
very small like that shows them that hey, we really appreciate the work that you do day in and day out and coming in and taking care of my dad and all of these other people every single day. And multiple people told us how how much they appreciated that. And also then it's not just my dad that they're caring for, then they have names to associate, like in
Mhm.
faces, like our faces who are very vocal. We're building relationships with these folks that work in the facilities. So I would definitely that's a good tip to have too, because
Okay.
it's if they're, say they're understaffed and they're running around all over the place. If they know us, I would say there's probably they're gonna watch out for them. They're gonna watch out for your
Yeah.
loved one, right?
Well, and also it's just the right thing to do. It's a letting them
Exactly.
know that I see you and I see the value in this profession that you've chosen to go into for
Yep.
whatever reason, because for what your calling is. I love what you said that because or that you said
Mhm.
that because yeah, they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't feel called to do it. And
Mhm.
obviously. But the next level is allowing ourselves to say, hey, we value what it is that you're doing, and we appreciate this time and this effort that you're putting into taking care of our parent or our spouse or
Mhm.
whatever the situation is. Can you tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about how this whole process maybe changed your perspective on living and
Yeah.
dying and preparing for what might
Yeah.
what it might look like for you and your family?
I think going back to I was pregnant whenever he passed, and, like, it really I mean, circle of life, like, things go on, and also it's really trippy because my son looks a lot like my dad, like, he looks a lot like him, like, their one-year-old baby pictures are basically identical, and so that's
Fun.
kind of a little weird, but it also is comforting at the same time, I don't know. My mom always says she says that Native Americans believe in, like, souls go back and they go back into your families, and, like, that's just kinda how the circle of life works, and if that's wrong, then don't tell me because
Yeah.
that's what she told me, and I like it. It makes
Yeah.
me feel better. So I don't
I
know.
love it. Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
think it's important because I think our souls carry so many imprints along the way of our
yeah.
experiences, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all the different things. And you know, you could argue many different points, and that's not what we're here to discuss necessarily, but it's about finding the thing that resonates with you. And it's about it's combining the resonation of those personal feelings
Mhm.
with the concrete reality of what you're facing and
Exactly.
bridging the gap between the 2
Mhm.
things.
And then just teaching all of his because he's like he's a, a voice in my head, right? Things will happen, and I'll know exactly what he was going to say because I mean I talk to him every single day,
Mm,
and he was such a impact on so many people's lives that I mean I've gotten messages from people after he's passed saying, "Hey, your dad sent me an email when my friend passed, and I forwarded on to my friends that have had loss, and it's been comforting to them." So like the teachings and all of the work that he did continues to go on, and like I know that I'm going to teach Banks, my son, like as much as I possibly can, so that also that's how you keep somebody alive, in my opinion. That's how you keep their spirit alive, is you
yeah.
live the way that they would want you to, and also with the lessons and all the amazing things that they taught you.
Yes,
So
absolutely. If you could kind of distill it all down, what's one of the biggest lessons that your dad's passing taught you personally?
mhm. I think have the hard conversations for sure. Be prepared as you can be, and also spend as much possible time as you can with your loved ones. Like,
Mm,
don't just spend as much time with them as you can. Take the trip, take the lunch, do the do all the things while you can because there's nothing more precious than that.
yeah.
There's nothing. Everything's better when you're with your loved ones and you're spending time with them.
Yeah, and time is so fleeting. Time is
Mhm.
so fleeting. It really is. I think that's one thing for me as I age, and I think that that's kind of the grand paradox of life, and like the circle of life. We realize as we age the value of that quality of time that we spend and in the quantity as well, like you were talking about, but giving that quality that time spent with your loved ones. I think we are in such a caught up place when we're younger about so many different things that we're learning and we're growing through and we're evolving with that. Yeah, until we get to an older place, time is fleeting. It's very few people that I've met that have been like under the age of 30 that have been those old souls that really kind of get it. So when you get a chance, if you're in your 20s and you're listening to this, slow down, call your parents, tell them you love them, say hey. you
Yeah,
know, yeah,
absolutely. Make the
take the
call
lunch.
the grandparents, learn the
Yeah.
stories, everything.
Yeah, yeah. How do you honor your dad's memory today? Like, what's the best thing that you can say, "This is what I do regularly."
I think it goes back to the voice in my head. So I definitely like I say the things that he would tell me all the time. Like don't borrow tomorrow's problems. Like you don't need to worry twice. Be
Wait, I love
kind.
that. Wait,
Yeah,
don't borrow tomorrow's problems?
yeah, don't worry twice. It's a worrying and because I'm an anxious person in general. So he would always tell me like you're worrying about things that haven't happened yet. Like if you're just doing that, you're gonna have it's gonna worry twice. You don't even know if this is gonna happen or not. So don't borrow it. You don't need to borrow it today.
Oh god, that's like a mic drop moment right there. That's great. And realistically, yeah, do you really wanna worry twice? We're gonna worry once.
You're gonna
That's
have to
enough.
do it anyways.
Yeah. Do we really need to pour more out of the pitcher there? I mean, like,
Yeah,
really?
exactly.
But don't borrow tomorrow's problems. Boy, that's amazing. I love it. Oh, Alison,
Thank
thank you so, 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 so much for
You're
coming on
welcome.
and giving
Thank you.
yeah, well, giving all of your valuable, vulnerable insightful information, because I know when you're tied to somebody as intricately and as connected as you and your dad were, right? Speaking about things like this can be different, very difficult, can be challenging, but
Mhm.
I'm so appreciative for you being able to share this with us and to know that those hard conversations are worth it. And this is what it gives you. It gives you quality and quantity of time to be able to spend those, like you said earlier, pockets of memories that you now
Mhm.
have, where you could really just be present with your loved one because you know that the other things are taken care of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Take out,
Oh,
it's already a stressful situation. Take out what you can. Do ahead what you can.
yeah. Yeah. Be present. Do what you can. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, Allison, squeeze your little boy for me. Tell your husband hello. Give him a hug for me too. Yeah. And I
I
want you to
will. I will.
have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you once again for your time. And yeah, have a great weekend. Okay.
Thank you. You too. See ya.